Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living TB. We're here with Bill Wiebalk, and you're all about bees, Sonoma bees in particular. Tell me about your company, Bill.
Well, it's not a company, it's a nonprofit organization called Sonoma County Beekeepers Association. So local people can find us at sonomabees.org. We're all about education and working together to increase our knowledge, collective knowledge about beekeeping in Sonoma County.
And what is the collective knowledge with the decline and collapse of the bee colonies, and they're suspecting that it's the neonicotinoids of the toxicity of the herbicides?
That's correct.
So,
but there's other issues.
What are the other theories?
Well, that's the main theory. Toxicity from various chemicals. Lack of forage is another one that, and now with our drought here, we're in 4 years of a drought, the bees don't have a lot of food. So normally in this time of year in Sonoma County, the weather and the plants really dry up, all the wildflowers dry up by May or so. Here it was by early April, it was gone. So that really has an effect on the bees because that spring pollen and spring nectar is very important to the growth of the hive.
So do you actually have bee colonies yourself?
I do. I have a small company on the side, Sonoma Valley Honey, and I have about 15 colonies, and then I keep bees for other people, a couple other clients.
Do you see any death amongst your colonies?
I have. So we as an experienced beekeeper can do all our best, but sometimes the bees just die, and again, we're not exactly sure. It may be chemical, it may be other things, but.
So when you say the bees are dying, it's not just a few bees dying in the colony, it's the entire colony is dying?
That's correct. And sometimes the entire colony will just be gone. They'll just, they won't. There can be things like pesticide poisoning, and then all the bees in the hive will be dead. But in this case, we don't see bees; they just disappear. So that's the colony collapse disorder, where they're just disappearing, and we're still not 100% sure.
And, well, in the colony, it's all about the queen bee.
That's right.
So does she die first, or does the other worker bees die, or maybe she's got more?
She would not necessarily.
Because she's bigger and she's stronger, so.
Well, yeah. In a typical summertime, the bees colonies are in a cycle. But say there's 50,000 bees in a large hive, 40,000 of them will be workers, the female. There'll be maybe 10,000 of the drones, a male, and then one queen. And if that queen dies, she's the only reproducing bee in the colony.
If the queen dies, the whole colony dies immediately?
It's possible.
Or do they go look for another queen?
No, they don't look for that, but if the conditions are right, they can make another queen. And as beekeepers, what we can do is induce the colony to make another queen.
How do they make another queen?
It's a bit complex, but if you have young brood in the colony, they'll sense that there's not a queen in the colony, and they'll make one. It would take another episode here, another 30 minutes to go through this in detail, but they can. The short answer is they can make, the bees can make their own queen if the conditions are right, which are typically in the spring and the summer.
And that's all without human intervention, that all happens naturally?
That's correct. That's correct. But as a beekeeper, what we can do is we can take a hive and make 3 hives out of it. We can split that colony, much less, it's like propagating a plant. Some of them you can just step on a spade and split them up, and it's real easy. Well, in beekeeping, you can do something similar to that. But
so if you're making 3 out of 1, are they still relying on the main queen still, or are they? No,
there'll be 2 colonies. If you make 3 out of 1, then 2 of the colonies won't have a queen. They'll have to make a new queen.
Now, what is the queen actually doing in a hive?
What is she doing? She's constantly laying eggs. She lays in the height of the summer. She'll lay about 2,000 eggs a day, at least.
2,000 a day.
I mean, you can count them. I mean, it's like 1 every few seconds. She's constantly putting her rear end into a cleaned out cell that the workers have prepared for her, and lays an egg and puts another one.
What's the job of the male to?
The male really doesn't do much.
For the pregnancy of the queen.
That's the one job that they have, is in the spring and in the summer they'll fly around and they'll look for a queen, a virgin queen that has left the hive in search of mating, and then she will be mated with about 12 to 20 drones in flight, and then that queen will be inseminated for life, which her life could last 2 years, up to 5 years. And she'll just keep laying eggs. So when she lays an egg and it comes in contact with sperm, it becomes a worker. If she lays an egg and it doesn't come in contact with sperm, as the egg exits her body, it becomes a drone or a male.
Is there a constant contact with the males for the insemination, or is that?
No, it just
No.
happens in a course of a couple of days while the queen flies out for her what's called her maiden flight or her virgin flight.
And then there's a continuum of eggs being produced, 2,000 a day, for how long?
As long as she lives or continues to produce, which is 2 to 5 years. It can be as long as 5 years. But what happens, though, invariably, she'll start slowing down in her older age. She won't be able to produce as many eggs. The other workers will sense this, and they will create conditions to create a new queen, or they'll hedge their bets, and they'll maybe produce 5 queens. And then when the new ones are born, there's only room for 1 queen in a hive, and then the young ones invariably survive, and they'll sting each other, and the strongest will survive. And then that's how the colony survives.
And what's the longevity of a queen?
Could be up to 5 years, but often not so much, 3 or 4 years at most. So.
And each bee's colonies, they're feeding on a certain kind of flower or clover, which will affect the taste of the honey.
That's
so
correct.
Your particular bees, what are they feeding on?
I call my bees, wildflower honey, because they're going from a variety of sources. We just don't have a monoculture here where you see things where it says orange blossom or blackberry. You have to have a lot of that one kind of plant. And in Sonoma County here, we're quite diverse. So I would call all the honey pretty much wildflower. They're going from source to source. Even if your bees are in a neighborhood, a common, with housing tract and all that kind of thing, there's a lot of exotic plantings. The bees actually do quite well in people's backyards.
It's been said that when the bees die completely, the human species will only have 4 years to live. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know about 4
Their job
years.
is so important.
It is.
Pollination, and we're so dependent on it.
I haven't heard the 4-year theory, but about a third of our food that we eat is pollinated by bees. And that's a lot of variety. If you could just go through the whole list of fruits and vegetables that we do not, that we rely on bees, I mean, there won't be much in the grocery store for us to buy. So
if that pollination does not happen, those vegetables and fruits do not exist.
That's correct.
Such as which vegetables and fruits? For example?
Blueberries, all the orchard fruits. Apples, the pears, all that has to be pollinated.
Flowers.
Blackberries, yeah. Generally, the plants that are a flower. Even a lot of the vegetables that we grow in our ordinary, vegetable gardens, tomatoes, squash, that kind of thing. Now, it's important to know that they're native bees. The bees that we keep as beekeepers are typically coming from Europe. They're Italian honeybees, typically. There are native bees. In Northern California, we have over 900 native bee species. I couldn't tell you more than 10 of them. I don't know a lot about the native bees, but there are experts at the University of California that know all this, and they're very efficient pollinators. However, you can't colonize them like we can, and keep them in a box like beekeepers do.
So if you have the final words to the public in concerns of the bees and producing and purchasing honey and as such, what would you offer to the public? What would be your final thoughts?
First of all, do what you can to save the bees. That means
What can they do?
No chemicals and pesticides. You don't need to use those in your yard. And then plant for diversity. Many nurseries now, or if not all nurseries, will tell you, what your bee-friendly plants, or they'll be specifically marked. So you can do your part by planting forage that bees can actually use. And by not using chemicals in your yard, that's a big help right there too.
Do you have a website, Bill?
I do, SonomaValleyHoney.com. And then the organization that I'm here representing today is our educational resource for the Sonoma County, and that's Sonoma County Beekeepers Association, and the website is sonomabees.org.
Well, thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.